is what I just said.
Responsibly. Wait, people do this all the time.
Responsibly?
Hey guys. Hope everyone's having a good night. I wanted to make a post to discuss a growing problem I've seen on the internet. Increasingly, more and more people are wanting to discuss politics online. Unfortunately, a lot of these people are sometimes what we in the biz refer to as dumb fucks. Sometimes, these dumb fucks get asked a question they don't know the answer to. You would think that for most normal people, this is relatively easy. You say I don't know, and then continue. For the egotistical dumb fuck, whose entire ego and self-worth is based on internet politics, this is not an option. Therefore, I present to you the official Demon Mama Guide to answering a question, so you too can try to desperately avoid being revealed to be a dumb fuck.
Okay, so we're all pro-supply chain here, right? We're all anarcho-supply chainists?
What do you mean by supply chain? Like, this is one of the things that was really annoying me about this conversation is that, like,
Step 1. Restate the question, as long and as wordily as possible.
the question that you asked is, what is somebody, and I'm putting in the preamble here specifically because this is what was implied in the question that you asked. This was the question that you asked me, which is,
this should be relatively easy, as it's the basic strategy for how the average high schooler deals with a word count essay.
How could we expect any of these DIY pharmaceutical labs to produce material of any greater quality than the DIY drug production, which has run rampant in this country for decades?
okay, if the question is how can we ensure that DIY medicine production is safer, that is one question. So okay, sorry, let me just be clear about the question that's being asked here. So the hypothetical that you've drawn up here is, in a world,
this can be as simply as taking something like how would DIY medications be regulated? And restating it as okay, so if what you're asking me is, if someone was to make DIY medications, and someone else was concerned about the regulations involved, and I had to demonstrate to you how it would be regulated, and that was a question you were asking me in this debate, and I had to answer, and so forth.
and then you take this medication and it makes you sick. Is that what you're asking me? Is it what you would do in that situation, or are you saying
This will get some good stalling in.
I feel okay. Thank you for taking 3 minutes to indicate that you haven't been listening to what I've been saying.
Step 2. Mention that you have many answers, while refusing to actually land on any of them.
Who do you sue? What do you do if people die from unregulated medication that was looked over by a non-profit?
Probably a whole lot of options. There's a couple of options for what you could do there, Vaush.
This is a good non-answer, and it allows you to act like you're struggling with which of the many answers to give, rather than trying to just come up with one.
How could you ensure they were of sufficient quality? Because if they're going through FDA regulation, then we're not really talking about DIY anything. We're just talking about like a startup lab.
No, I think there are there are many ways to do this. One of the ways to do this is, for example, if you're asking for my immediate prescription, one of the ways to do this is to have other, here, I'll just go full into the,
oh my God.
This can be a little indirect, like there's many factors to consider, and I've seen a lot of good solutions proposed, or direct, where you just rattle off many half-formed answers that are too general to address all of them.
I mean, there's a number of ways to do that.
The chemical purity of a drug?
Oh, well, I mean, consumers can have limited options right now in how they do that. They have to trust.
They have FDA regulation. That's how they trust it.
We could have some kind of oversight committee. A government could do it. We could see which medications were getting ratioed on Twitter and which weren't, etc.
And the answer is, in my opinion, or I wouldn't say the answer, I would say one of many answers, is to pursue the massive ungatekeeping of the production of and research of and understanding of diseases, medicine, medical technology. That is, I think, a huge part of it.
That's a different thing, though.
Step 3. Make vague references to things that have nothing to do with the question. Tell them to look up random things, and make general statements that don't answer and are just random complaints/observations.
What I'm saying is that we're now getting into the nitty-gritty of whether or not there are areas of the United States in which it is incredibly difficult to source easily produced medicines. And I would argue that it is. I would recommend looking into the issues with attaining certain types of medications, specifically insulin, HRT, painkillers, that are in like rural reservations.
So here, you want to bring up things that you know are true.
Rural reservations? What the fuck are we even talking about right now? I'm pretty sure U.S. Postal Service will deliver a letter or something to like any address in the continental U.S. in like 2 days, no? Or maybe it's like 4 days if you're from one end to the other. Like, what are we even talking about?
But have nothing to do with the question, but kind of seem to, and are too general to be attacked.
Well, yeah, people are going to do different things. Some organizations are going to are going to be waging war on the legal front, and other organizations are going to be saying, "Oh my God."
For example, on medicine regulations, you could say things like, doctors weren't always regulated, medicine was a thing before there was any regulation, or look up like herbs and natural medicines used in many non-Western countries, or it's not like these regulations always work perfectly regardless.
Do you think it was a morally bad action for gay people during the AIDS crisis to purchase and or produce unregulated AIDS medication?
No.
Do you think that was a bad thing?
I don't know if you guys know what's happening here. Vaush does this sometimes, but I think he's got a larger vocabulary than Demon Mama. When Demon Mama is saying what she's doing is she's trying to find more adjectives that she can throw in front of the word, but she can't think of any, so then she's just like, AIDS medication. That's what that pause is. I don't know if you're aware of that. Let me... unregulated AIDS medication. She could just say unregulated AIDS medication, but she's looking for more like unregulated, untested, homemade. Like she's just trying to find more shit. Supplementary, yeah. Like, but she can't find it. So she's like AIDS medication. That's what's happening. Yeah.
No.
Do you think that was a bad
This
thing?
idea of like over embellishing the fuck out of every word you say drives me crazy. I tried to speak like this when I was like 17. Jesus, grow the fuck up.
No.
Okay, then we are in agreement. And what you've been
No.
doing...
They
what we have been
were
doing-
they
what you
were
have been doing
given
for
a
most of this
death
conversation-
sentence.
Step 4. Act like the question itself is some monumental and or impossible task.
You literally asked me, you walked into this conversation and asked me, are you against supply chains? And I told you that question doesn't make any sense to me.
Take what the question is asking and phrase it as if the simplest ask is ridiculous. For example, if someone asks you something like how would you enforce something that's unregulated? You can tell them I don't think I need to have like every in and out of a new society figured out to advocate for something.
Other governments,
And what
because all of the
system-
best engineers in the world came
What
together.
system do you go through if there is a reprimand? What system do you go through if something has gone wrong?
I mean, if you want me to make something up on the spot, I don't know.
You
like,
don't have to. It's
I
the
don't,
federal court
I don't-
system.
Step 5. Deny saying anything that would warrant this question.
How are federal regulators regulating the production of an unlicensed lab with people who have learned chemistry from medicine books and lab equipment they bought? How are federal regulators regulating the production of an unlicensed lab with people who have learned chemistry from medicine books and lab equipment they bought online?
Huh? But they don't have to.
Huh?
Wait,
That's
you,
not the
you just
only.
said there
That's not
is
the,
federal
wait,
regulation.
Wait. That's
What?
not the only. Wait. Okay.
What?
I'm
What?
sorry.
What?
I'm unironically confused as to what you're asking me
Huh?
here. I'm genuinely getting confused. I'm not trying to be like, I don't know. Maybe you
What-
think
what?
I'm trying to be performative or whatever. I just don't know what you're asking me.
Look puzzled, off to the side towards your chat, and in the most incredulous voice you can muster, say something like wait, did I say anything like this? I'm honestly like not even trying to do like a debate tactic or something. I'm genuinely puzzled.
What are you getting at with that? Like, I
Fewer
recognize
accidental deaths.
Okay. Oh my God. Like, I don't know how to like. I feel like.
Why would
there's,
you
like,
ask
such a
me? What does
line-
regulation of the pharmaceutical industry get us? What do you mean?
What? Who said that?
You just damn.
I'm sorry. Did I? I don't know what. I'm sorry. Unironically, I don't know what you're talking about right here. Did I miss?
Are you
or something?
high?
But I feel like you getting up in arms about me being supposedly too condescending after you accused me of gaslighting you because of something I don't even remember what you were referring to. And if I said
Maybe
that,
it never
then
happened at all.
maybe it never happened at all.
Oh, this might have been the
Step
part where
6.
Vaush misheard
Question
one
the
word
validity
here.
of the question.
And
to
pull-
other
wait,
people.
Wait, I'm sorry. Vaush, you are pulling things out of your ass and bombarding me with these very, very strange and pointed questions,
Strange
specifically
questions.
to
Strange and
avoid.
pointed questions.
Excuse me. Let me
Excuse
finish.
me.
Can you
Specific-
wait? What
Excuse
strange
me.
and pointed
Excuse me.
question, Demon Mom?
Yes, asking me what in an alternate world that I'm not even advocating for, in a world in which the only medication
question?
God, look, dude, how does she talk? How does her audience not see how fucking stupid this sounds? How can our audience not understand, like in the world that we live in? How can our audience not understand, as a Twitch streamer who's doing a debate with Vaush? I don't understand how the people can't see when she's having this conversation. I don't understand how people aren't aware when she's in the middle of this debate with another content creator. I don't see how, like, the people in her chat that are listening, like, I don't understand how they aren't able to see through, like, the way that she is speaking here. I don't see how, like, all the people that are watching this conversation take, like, oh my god, she fucking get to the fucking point. Jesus Christ. Every time she talks, it's like this.
Yes, asking me what in an alternate world that I'm not even advocating for, in a world in which the only medication you can get is.
The point here is to signal to your audience that this is a bad question. A very common tactic here is to refer to a question that asks for a specific answer as fishing for a yes/no answer, or to claim that the question is trying to shoehorn you into some specific straw man I don't hold.
I think if we could have like a perfect fantasy world that you could sort of summon up right now, it would be awesome if there was a benevolent AI that could scan everything that's produced by humans to make sure that it's good for them. But that doesn't exist. Like, I feel there's no attempt to engage.
With the addendums, when I ask a question that is yes or no,
I can addendum whatever the fuck I want.
But
you don't impose. Wait, it doesn't detract anything. You ask me a question and I speak. If you want to have if you want it to be like an inquisition and you want me to just answer with single yes, no,
but you're just whining.
I'm not whining.
Step 7, tell them they're being bad faith, and paint the narrative to your audience of why.
But we should not be encouraging like DIY painkiller meth labs where people with no regulation or oversight.
Okay, right there. You just said it.
To fix systemic problems.
You just said it right there. Do you see what you just projected onto my actual tweet?
I feel
like that right there, what you did right there, saying that like I'm advocating for like meth labs and shit is what I was trying to say at all. I feel like that's ridiculous. I feel like that's the sort of core of the uncharitability I'm dealing with.
Where in this tweet am I supposed to assume government regulation and standard and production control is involved?
Nowhere.
So after attacking the question, you move on to them.
I guess I'll join you for a minute in your fucking ableism arc, because this is fucking schizo posting. None of this changes a single thing about what I said.
Yes, it does, because that's an incredibly specific niche.
No, Vaush.
This entire conversation is you woke up grumpy. You have walked onto.
You want to sigh here before you say this, because the implication you're trying to send out is that despite you desperately looking for a good faith conversation, you're forced to conclude there being bad faith. Say that.
This is exhausting, Vaush, because I feel like no matter wait, stop, please. No matter what I say here, you have a very specific, it feels like you have a specific angle on this, and that no matter what I answer, you just immediately pivot to something else.
Talk about how it's disappointing and accuse them of looking for some own.
The fundamental advocacy of the actual position. If you're not married to blowing me up about a tweet,
accuse them of emotional bias. They're tired. They're mad. Are you mad? They're too invested to back down. You can mix it up and have fun with it.
It seems like every time you say something that's indefensible, when I say like, whoa, what do you mean by this? You accuse me of being essentially like uncharitable for interpreting right now with the ANCAP stuff. You just made ANCAP arguments. The arguments you made were as ANCAP as Putin's blood and soil arguments were fascist. There's no room for analogizing or argument on this.
Again, this is just, I think this is just really uncharitable schizo.
I literally just said when you don't like how I characterize your arguments, you'll say I'm uncharitable and crazy, and then you just did it.
Tell them you think it would be better to have the discussion another time.
If you want to talk about this another time when you're less heated, or like, I don't know, when you want to be a little more charitable.
A little bit there.
Step 7.1, only for big streamers, say they're contradicting their prior content without explaining why.
Or how. Do you think an absence of profits will make inherently people act in better faith when it comes to the...
You believe this too!
I'm sorry, Vaush, I'm not an idealist.
A key line here is I know you know this. make some reference to something tangentially related. You've argued before about how draconian regulations can be, or talk about how surprising it is to hear them talk like this. Another sign to your audience of how emotionally compromised and biased they are.
So
There are
you
a
say
lot of
we'll
ways-
have like another non-profit who will look over them. Well, how do we not know that they're buddies and they do it together? And if you're a
Well,
consumer,
I mean, okay,
if-
wait, hold on. Let me answer that. Like, before you go on to something else, let me answer that.
One question I
Already
can
have
answer.
that problem. We already, and Vaush, you talk about this problem on your channel. You already know that even within the FDA, even within our current regulatory standards, there's fuckload of corporate buddying that goes on.
do you think those are comparable?
Wait, yes.
Step 8. When they finally try to stop your rambling, accuse them of cutting you off and not letting you speak.
But because I'm pointing out the fact that this entire conversation happened like 6 comments deep, and then no one will let me talk further about this incredibly large topic, despite asking me a million projected questions based on their own interpretation of what they think
Okay.
my views are.
And
I even made a thread about it, and nobody fucking looks at it.
Well, right, we see what we see. Now, I'm totally okay with you clarifying and explaining. That's why I'm mostly asking you questions.
So the last few steps have been crucial in order to try to bait them to interrupt. When they do so, talk about how messed up it is that they ask you a question, and they won't even let you answer it. Mix in some of step 7 here. Them interrupting is a perfect time to assert how bad faith they're being, and how obviously they don't want to actually have the discussion.
So they didn't
Vaush,
talk about
you just asked me a question. You didn't even
hypercentralization.
let me finish it. Wait,
No, I
right
asked you
here.
if you agreed
Oh
with
my
them.
god. Okay,
And
so
now
this
you're...
is Twitter court then. This is
No.
what this is.
Hopefully they'll try to defend themselves and say this is not what you're doing, and you can have a little back and forth about how you think it is, and how an example was them cutting you off.
It's you're not like falling for the system if you get medicine from within
I'm sorry,
the
was
traditional...
that the takeaway?
Well, you said do what they want you to do, and then you compared it to getting a job at McDonald's, and that did seem like kind of a loaded comparison.
Did you want to let me finish that sentence? Because like I literally didn't even get to finish the thought. Like, I
Okay.
feel like you might be jumping the gun a little bit.
At this point, hopefully they'll say that you didn't answer the question, at which point you can go to step 9.
You could sue them through the federal government. If
How?
if
Wait,
we're
wait,
talking
hold on.
about if you hold on, wait,
why was
if
my
you
next
wanna
sentence
answer,
involving?
you got to let me answer if you want an answer, Vaush.
Wait, they're
if you want
unlike.
me
Wait,
to
hold
answer
on.
again for you when you didn't listen to my answer before, then I can repeat it again, and I'll do it right now.
Step 9. Claim you've already answered the question.
Then it seems like your issue isn't that you're not being given room to fully explain.
10
Your
minutes to
issue is
evolve
that
something?
You're being
Oh, I didn't
asked
know
to
that.
explain it all.
Fuck.
You know what I mean?
Why do I feel like an idiot?
No, sure, I can understand that some people might have that interpretation, but I think that's an uncharitable interpretation. I've been pretty willing to answer. Actually, I've been extremely willing to answer questions on this,
Okay, so I just
including
have,
yours. I've answered every one.
At this point, you should have a minimum of 10 to 15 minutes buffer from the original question asked. Therefore, you now claim that actually, you did give them an answer to the question. If they claim that you didn't, say they didn't hear you / understand you, and or tell them you kept interrupting me when I was giving the answer.
if people get hurt with FDA regulated medication.
Yes,
They're
they
going to
do.
get hurt far more with unregulated medication.
Okay, and what did I? Do you remember what I answered you? Because I already answered.
You
that
didn't
question.
give an answer. Actually, you made
I
fun of
did
me
give
for
an answer.
asking it.
Nope, I actually did give an answer.
What was
but
the answer?
I recognize you haven't been listening. The answer that I said is there are a number of paths you could take.
Ask and give the answer again. Sigh, claim to be looping, do a little more of step 7 and talk about how you are no longer interested in this conversation, and then tell them rewatch the VOD. I'm not going over all of it again.
We're not wandering around in circles because we're both talking past each other. You're just failing to address points that I'm making and then
I
sort of
strongly
loftily
disagree.
dismissing the invalidity of the argument as a
I
whole.
strongly disagree with your characterization of that, and I think the VOD will speak for itself, but okay.
Well, there we are folks. With this easy guide, you never ever have to answer a question. Or, for that matter, ever watch a Demon Mama debate again. Because for someone who's had to watch too many of them, this is how all of them go.
Wow.